Well, hello everyone. We are back for Module 2. Hopefully at this point you've completed Module 1, which was on business planning. Hopefully you have worked with your mentor. You've started the business plan for your business using the cloud-based software that we provide you at no cost. And now we're off to Module 2. So there are 4 modules. Now we're on Module 2, which is about building credit. So let's get started. So, agenda, we have the welcome, which we've pretty much just covered. There is a pre-survey, just like we had on Module 1, whereby we like to do the pre and post survey, and we'll review the learning objectives in just a moment. There are 5 sections. There's so much information to go through. I'm going to be giving you a high-level, quick overview of this. Certainly, you'll be working with your mentor on drilling deeply into it. And then afterwards, what we're going to do is make sure that you complete the 2 specific tasks that are associated with Module 2, and that's completing your personal financial statement. We commonly call that our PFS, and authorizing your soft credit pull, which doesn't impact your credit score, doesn't commit you to anything, but allows us to continue to gather data. Because what are we doing? We're trying to do 2 things: build financial literacy, but also build your loan package. And the loan package is what's going to allow us to get funding. But we need to understand your mitigating factors, your circumstances, where you're at now to match the right type of capital and see if anything needs to be done to qualify for it. So let's move on. Our learning objectives, number 1, we're going to understand how personal and business credit reporting landscape relates to your business. And it's important to understand that there's 2 categories of credit, personal versus business. We'll talk about both of them. Secondly, we're going to identify what goes into personal and business credit scores so you can understand it more deeply. We're going to understand how to establish and build strong personal and business credit scores. And it's a bit of a different process for each. And then we're going to look at it from the eyes of the lenders, because if you're going through this curriculum and you're enrolled in our program, most likely your goal is to get access to more capital to start or grow a business. And so we need to be able to step back and look at this from the lenders or the extenders of credit perspective as well. Also, we're going to learn how credit reporting services could benefit your business, leverage strong personal and business credit histories for better financing terms, and lastly, recognize when business credit history may become a bigger factor. So often I'll hear from clients that they want to focus on getting capital, getting funding, getting financing under their EIN, under their business credit, maybe only under their business credit or primarily under their business credit, under their EIN. And we'll talk about how that works as we go along. Okay, so section 1 of the 5, again, I told you we have a lot to go through. I'm going to be giving you a quick overview, and then you're going to sit down with your mentor, sit down either literally or figuratively, maybe over Zoom or phone call, and dig deeper into this. But let's go ahead and talk about credit reporting. So why are credit reporting agencies important to my business? 3 things: to seek financing, to manage debts and obligations, and to assess and reduce risk before entering into a relationship. Well, what is credit? Credit is the ability to borrow money or goods based upon the promise that it'll be paid back, and it's important for the financial stability and success of individuals and businesses. I know that there are some philosophies out there that you shouldn't use credit, but we do need to differentiate consumer credit from business credit. Business credit is called leverage. That's where we're using other people's money to start or grow, to generate more profit. And of course, as it mentioned here, we agree to pay it back or meet the credit terms. But almost all, not all, but almost all successful businesses that reach their potential will need to leverage credit. And so we're going to go through this very important topic over the next few minutes. As I mentioned early on, personal credit is different than business credit. Personal credit is about you. Your business credit is about your business. There's different bureaus, there's different scoring algorithms. It's very much different. So when we talk about the importance of credit for a business, we'll start at 12 o'clock. So it's on the demonstration, the model to access financing. Well, think about it. You know, if you were going to loan money to someone, you would want to assess the likelihood that they would pay you back and thus the risk of default. So to access financing, of course, is going to often look at credit. Now, we've talked about this outside of this module, but keep in mind, not all sources of capital use credit. So there are some sources of capital that are not dependent upon business nor personal creditworthiness. But this module, module 2, is on credit, so we're looking at it from the credit perspective. Over on 3 o'clock, it's important to acquire or manufacture inventory. Down at 6 o'clock to get equipment and materials. And then over on the 9 o'clock on the left-hand side, so important, we need adequate working capital. We don't want to run a business where we're running on fumes, where we don't have enough money to pay ourselves. We don't have a good cushion. What should the cushion be? Should it be 60 days, 90 days, 180 days of cash on hand in case there's disruptions? But ultimately, credit plays an important role in supporting your business's growth and sustainability. So it's important that we're talking about it for the next few minutes. Now, this graphic talks about on the y-axis, the up and down, the importance of personal credit, and then on the x-axis, left and right, business credit. So again, so often I'll have small businesses that say, I only want to use business credit. I don't want to use my personal credit at all. And so the ability to do that is going to be impacted by the age and the specifics of your business. But what is important to understand, there's different sources of capital, each have their own underwriting criteria. And so we're going to go through this 4-module process to figure out what's the right source of capital for you. And if it includes building business creditworthiness, we're really good at doing that. And we can help you do that. There's really 2 ways to build business credit, getting ahead of myself, the organic versus the fast track way, but we'll come back to that. There are case studies in each of the modules. Last module, we learned about the young lady that had the cell phone repair company. And then the case study here in module 2 is about EcoGrow Solutions. So you can refer to that and discuss that more with your mentor. I'm going to, again, progress here quickly. So credit in your business. Have you applied for business loans or lines of credit in the past? What happened? What did they ask for? What did they look for? What I know, and I think it's unfortunate, is a lot of times, well, most of the time, small businesses are not approved for financing. And the point I was getting to is I think so often, there's often not really clarity given back to the applicant of why not. Sometimes it's more compliance, the type of responses you get versus the real scoop. So what we want to do is educate about credit. We want to optimize credit. We want to identify the right source or sources of capital based upon your circumstances. So section 2 now, we're on section 2 of 5, is talking about how personal credit fits into the mix. Again, I understand that most of us would prefer to use business credit, not personal credit, but let's go ahead and talk about how personal credit fits in. Well, personal credit is relevant because it tells lenders who you are, how much debt you have, how much credit you've applied for recently, how much of your credit or revolving credit specifically that you're using. Have you been paying on time? Are there any negative information? And you might say, well, I only want business funding and business credit. This shouldn't matter. Well, it may or may not depend upon the source of capital, but you could probably understand why some lenders at least would look at personal credit worthiness as well, because especially in an early stage small business, it's hard to separate the discipline and decision making of the owner from the small business. Now, again, as that one graph mentioned a slide or 2 ago, as the business grows both in revenue and age, then we're able to even further separate personal and business. So there are 3 main consumer credit reporting agencies, which are different than the business credit reporting agencies, which we'll talk about soon. But we have Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion shown here. And so personal credit information includes your social and addresses and date of birth and your open accounts and inquiries and certain public records. What does not appear on a credit report are things like how much money you have in the bank. Although it may show self-reported income, it's not a verification of income. Certainly your medical history, it's not included. Doesn't show purchases that's not financed. And so, I run into folks that say, well, I pay my bills on time, but it doesn't reflect on my credit. Well, that's true. Depending upon who you're paying and do they report or not, it may build your credit profile or it may not. Your personal credit also doesn't reflect business information, nothing about race, gender, religion, your driving record, nor marital status. So your personal credit score helps lenders determine credit risk, and there are many different scoring models. So each bureau, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, each have on average about 50 different scoring models. So it's not uncommon that you'll think your score is one thing, but the lender one amount, one score, but the lender thinks it's something different because there's not just one credit score. There's not just one credit score per bureau. It depends upon the scoring algorithm they're using. The two main categories of personal credit scores are FICO versus Vantage. Most lenders use FICO. Scores range from 300 to 850. I commonly get asked, well, what's the score that I need to get funding? And there's not a simple answer to that because, as I've mentioned at least twice already, there are different sources of capital. Each have their own underwriting criteria. Some of them don't use credit at all. Furthermore, credit is fluid and it doesn't have a memory. So we commonly see people that have some credit issues, and normally in about 60 days, 2 months, their credit can be night and day different than what it was. And we're not talking about credit repair, but the point is credit is fluid, and the screen is helpful to understand how your scores are calculated. And I encourage you to dig into the participant guide deeper than what we have time for today. So again, getting back to what's a good personal credit score, I think in general, if I were forced to give an answer, 680 or above is where we want to be. Of course, the higher the score. Every once in a while, I'll get really weird conversations with clients, and they'll say, well, I want an 850. Well, once you get really high, especially above 800, arguably even maybe above 750, then part of it is just time, that you've been doing the right things for a long period of time. So there are strategies and techniques that are legal and ethical, of course, to get just about anyone up to a 700 credit score. But I don't believe that you can get just about anyone to an 800 credit score without giving it time. But the good news is, typically, if we're at above a 720, we're in great shape. If we're above a 680, we're in good shape. And there certainly are some sources of capital that do not even have minimum credit score requirements. We recommend that you use some sort of credit monitoring service to keep track of how your credit's doing, so you're notified of changes. We don't sell that. We don't pitch that. I know you can get a free one once a year from annualcreditreport.com, but it's not really monitoring, and it doesn't produce scores, and the scores are important quantification of where you're at. So again, review your credit report, make sure it's current. If you need help, your mentor can help you with that, and make sure if it's not accurate or not optimized, then consider options to improve your score, because that just makes sense to do. And again, we're not talking about credit repair. So there are different strategies to address derogatory items, and we'll talk about that here more. So there's the FCRA, and so there's different provisions under the Fair Credit Reporting Act that protects us as consumers to make sure that everything that's on our credit report is accurate, complete, and verifiable. And if it's not, there are strategies, some more effective than others, to address derogatory information. And so again, your mentor can help you with that as they do the credit analysis with you. So exercise 1 out of your participant guide is, in fact, understanding a credit report's content. We're not going to go through that in detail. Your mentor will sit down and go through that with you. So what are some best practices for building strong personal credit? Maintain healthy credit, keep revolving, which means like credit card balances low. Don't ignore collections and debts. I would forewarn you though, I've seen many clients, they'll see a collection item on their credit report and their instinct may be, well, I'll call them, I'll pay it and take care of it. But just because you pay an old collection account doesn't mean that they're going to remove it from your credit report. It may be reflected, updated as a $0 balance, but it may still be there. So again, there's specific techniques and strategies that you want to be strategic about when working on your credit. Fourthly, we want to, of course, try to avoid negative events when we can. Talk about bankruptcies and foreclosures. But bankruptcies even, it's important to understand that nothing has to be reported on your credit. And bankruptcies are a great example. We commonly see bankruptcies removed or blocked from credit profiles, and that alone can help a score go up and the lendability go up. So just don't fall into the trap of thinking, well, you know, if I've had a negative event, it has to stay on my credit report. There are no laws, no requirements that that's the case. Fifth here is talking about if you're going to look for houses or cars, try to do it in a narrow window so the inquiries are hopefully grouped instead of counted separately. I don't always see that working, but that's okay. You need to have a good, healthy mix of credit. And so I know that there's some financial experts, as I mentioned earlier, you know, don't use credit at all. But really, if you want to have an optimal credit score, here's what an optimal credit profile probably looks like. It includes having a mortgage. And so that's a weird statement, right? Well, maybe I don't want to own a home. Well, then don't get a mortgage. Or, you know, maybe I have enough money to pay off my mortgage. I don't want to carry that. But if you were to identify what makes a good, optimal, healthy credit mix, it includes a mortgage, and it also includes, which is an installment type of loan, and it also includes 3 to 5 revolving accounts, credit cards with good payment history and low utilization. So what's the point I'm trying to make? Don't think that just by not having credit that will give you good credit. It's the opposite of that. We need to demonstrate that we have been responsible with credit to have strong credit. So when is personal credit important for your business? Well, as I mentioned earlier, there are different sources of capital and each have their own underwriting criteria, but it's rather aggressive to think I'm going to go form a brand new company and that brand new company is only going to use business credit. It's not going to have any impact on my personal credit. That's a very aggressive position to take and may or may not be able to be accomplished. But as we move along the curve, excuse me, we can certainly become less dependent on personal credit and allow the business to stand more and more on its own. Just again, a caveat, not all sources of capital look at personal credit, so don't fall into that trap. There's not one answer to the question of what does it take to get approved. So again, you can look in the participant guide and continue to participate with Rosa and Albert as they're progressing with their business. All right, so that takes us to section 3, the third of the 5 sections. Now we're talking about business credit, but your ears are perked now. This is great information I think is commonly poorly understood and underutilized. So business credit is about the creditworthiness of the business, the EIN, and the risk of lenders or extenders of credit losing money. So business credit is different than personal credit. Of course, business credit is based upon the business itself. There are 3 main players in business credit reporting. Now, I realize there were 3 for personal credit, and you're going to see some similar names, but these are really different. So Dun & Bradstreet, of course, we didn't mention before, but Equifax and Experian we mentioned before on the consumer side, but forget that we have, because this is a different division. This is business credit side, not personal. You might ask, what information do business credit reports have? Has information about businesses' names and addresses, your DUNS number, which is issued for free. You don't have to pay for that. Some people will try to sell you that, but you can get a DUNS number for free from Dun & Bradstreet, like a unique identifier, your industry classification code. There's a lot of information that can be captured on a business credit report. And so we can help you review that and optimize that as part of the process. So what's important here on this slide is to realize that the regulation of business credit is much different than personal credit. And specifically, governmental agencies like the FCRA that we talked about earlier do not apply to business credit. It applies only to personal credit. So again, personal credit scores are different than business. And frankly, and it's not really here on the slide, but it's the truth, business credit can be built much more rapidly than personal credit, and you can get a lot more of it. So it's faster and can be bigger than what personal credit can be. We just like on personal credit, we do need to check periodically our business credit reports, make sure that it's accurate, make sure that it's optimized, and you may want to even consider a monitoring service. We can help you with all of that if needed. So exercise 2 is working with your mentor on your business credit report checklist. So we'll have you do that offline. I'll continue on with our overview. All right, so should you establish business credit? I don't really care what it says on the screen. I think you'd be foolish or remiss to not want to optimize your business credit profile, because business credit is visible to everyone. Personal credit, unless you give someone permission to review your personal credit, they shouldn't see it. But business credit is open to the public. So your competitors, your clients, your prospective clients can all see your business credit profile and make decisions if they want to work with you, in addition to applying for funding. So I think it's a no-brainer to want to build your business credit, in my opinion. We'll help you through that. We'll walk you through that. We're really good at that. So what are some best practices for building business credit? Obviously, pay your bills on time, make sure your business is visible, good relationships with suppliers and vendors. And again, on that third one, just because you pay your rent on time doesn't mean that it reports. If the extender of credit is not reporting to one or more of those bureaus, Dun & Bradstreet, Experian Business, Equifax Business, then it frankly doesn't matter that you pay your bills on time, because it's not being reported to the public. When I say it doesn't matter in the sense of building your business credit profile. We also want to try to separate personal and business finances whenever possible. All right, and again, work with your mentor and continuing to do the case study with EcoGrow Solutions. Building your business credit history. So in the next year, how do you think having a healthy business credit report could help your business? And in the next 5 years, how do you think it could help? And I would argue that it could help you access capital, and also probably will impact your growth, your sales, because again, as I mentioned, it's publicly viewable. Anyone can buy a business credit report on your business. All right, we're down the home stretch, and then we're on section 4 of 5 sections here on module 2. We're going to talk about from the lender's perspective, how they evaluate your credit worthiness. So for small businesses, which is most of who we work with, you're to see the 4 quadrants. So upper left, lenders and businesses that use credit reports and report to credit reporting agencies. Consumer business credit reporting agencies, companies that provide credit reporting, federal and state law. So all of this are the impacting factors, the overlapping variables that impact our business credit environment. So here we can see, looking at how lenders evaluate your credit worthiness and taking into consideration both personal and business credit. Here we talk about the 5 C's. Usually when we're working with clients, we keep it simple to the 3 C's, but let's work from the left to the right. So capacity. Capacity we commonly refer to as cash flow. And so what that means is, do I have the ability to service the debt? I want to go borrow $1 million. Well, do I have enough money coming in to pay the loan payments? Just like if you wanted $1 million mortgage, right? What would the mortgage lender do? They would look to see if you could afford to pay the mortgage on $1 million property. Well, if you want $1 million or 500,000 or 100,000 or $10,000 business loan, whatever the amount is, capacity, which we call often cash flow, matters, right? Can you afford to pay it back? I realize in some cases we're pre-revenue or we're early phase. And so by getting that injection of capital, then we'll have the cash flow that the sales that will generate will give us the money to pay the debt back. But that is a bit riskier for the lender, right? Or the extender of credit. More often, so I'm not saying that that can't happen. We have a franchise that we worked with, got them like $1.2 million. Well, before they opened, they had zero income, right? Now, the owner had some capacity to be able to pay, but ultimately, without opening that franchise and operating it, there wasn't money to pay it back. So I respect that. But I just wanted you to realize that the first of the 5 C's, capacity, which we call cash flow, is do we have the ability to service the debt, to pay it? The second is collateral. Not all sources of capital, not all sources of capital look at collateral. So there's collateralized loans and uncollateralized, but some do. Credit history is a big deal, and that can be both personal and or business, depending upon the lender's underwriting standards. Conditions is looking at more environmental factors. You know, if you and I wanted to go, I don't know that we could. If we wanted to buy a new franchise for Blockbuster Video, right? The last I heard, there was one left, I think in Eugene, Oregon, or somewhere in Oregon in the whole country. All the rest have moved to closed because of streaming and other sources of accessing movies and entertainment. So market conditions matter. And then character. Character is really important because it's how we carry ourselves. And I know that it matters as we're working with you to position your loan package. How do you act? Some people act professional. Some people act unprofessional. Some people are timely and diligent, and some aren't. And those are elements that build into character. And there's also non-traditional data that can be built in to credit profiles, but I'll leave that to you and your mentor to talk about. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are many different sources of capital, and each have their own criteria, their own underwriting priorities. So that's an important part of what we're going to be doing by going through this 4-module process: building financial literacy, building your lender compliant loan package, and then matching you to the right type of capital based on your circumstances. And so that can impact personal credit, which is highlighted green, as well as business credit, which is highlighted here. All right, there's the third exercise. And again, that's something that your mentor will work with you one-on-one. And let's kind of wrap up section 4 as we get ready for section 5, our final section of module 2. So what are some best practices? Know your credit, know what the lender's looking for, and know your rights. There's a self-assessment there, and you'll work with your mentor on exercise 4, one-on-one. All right, we are down to the final stretch. We're on the final straightaway. We see the checkered flag here, and we're on to section 5 on credit reporting and business operations. So we've already covered that there's different bureaus, and there's some bureaus that operate in the consumer space and some that operate in the business space, and how they report is different. We didn't go real deep. A few things that I should mention that I probably didn't before. So we talked about personal credit ranging from around 300 to 850. Business credit is scored differently, and it's typically from a 1 to 100 scale. Usually if we have an 80 or above, then that is good. But then there's some hybrid scoring methodologies, like the SBA. If you want an SBA loan, they look at FICO SBSS, Small Business Scoring System, and that goes from 0 to 300. You need around a 160 typically to get an SBA loan. So it's a bit complicated, but that's why we're here. So you're going to work with your mentor through the first 4 modules, and then myself or one of our financial advisors. All of us are former bankers, lenders, and or SBA advisors. We'll work with you on applying all that data to your funding plan. What are some key points to remember? On the personal credit side, credit reports are created by consumer credit reporting agencies. They include some personal information, and there are many different types of scores. On the business credit side on the right, created by business credit reporting agencies. They look at different variables. And as I mentioned earlier, business credit is available to anyone. You can pull a business credit report on any business. You don't need their permission. You're not doing something wrong or devious to review their business credit profile. So both, frankly, both personal and business credit reporting are important for your business. I covered earlier, personal credit is fluid and it doesn't have a memory. Even if your personal credit's not so strong now, it can be, in most cases, materially better. It can be much, much better, typically in a 60-day window, and we're not talking about credit repair. Business credit can build quickly, and there's 2 main ways to build business credit: fast track and organic. We'll work with you and figure out which is best for you. But the important thing is to understand credit and seek to actively manage it and improve it. Keep in mind that lenders and other extenders of credit use information differently. Different ones have different requirements, and frankly, there are some sources of capital that don't look at credit at all. Remember, we talked about those 5 C's earlier. So I don't think you would ever borrow money without a lender looking at least at one of those 5 C's. And I'm certainly not here to suggest that the more strength in the 5 C's you have, you would certainly be better off, but you don't have to be strong in credit or in all 5 C's to get funding. In terms of questions, what you've learned, how you'd evaluate the training, obviously you'll work with your one-on-one mentor on that, but let's wrap it up. Last slide here. So the pre and post assessment is very valuable. Please fill that out and share that with your mentor, as well as the evaluation form. I realize that we're moving fast, but I'm giving you the overview. The mentor is working one-on-one with you or in small groups. And then, but the highlighted yellow here at the bottom of the page is probably the most important thing that we've covered in the last few minutes together, 30 some minutes together. There's 2 key tasks that are associated with module 2 that's crucial, right? So with module 1, it was to log in and start using your business plan software that we provide you. On module 2, where we're at now, there's 2 tasks. You're going to work with your mentor to complete your personal financial statement, referred to as a PFS, and you're also going to complete the soft credit pull authorization. Frankly, at this point, we can look at that data and look at your first tranche of financing called FTF, first round of financing, or interim financing if you want, bridge financing. What do you qualify right now? Even though we've not made it through the 4 modules, even though we don't have the loan package built yet, let's figure out what you can qualify for now and get some funding in your pocket. So get with your mentor, make sure to complete those 2 key tasks, and then I'll see you again soon when we get together for module 3. Thanks and have a great day. Talk to you soon.